I was 14 years old when I first started composing. I don't know why I left it so long, because I was playing the piano from the age of 7 or 8, but I digested all the musical influences, and then one summer holiday I was at my cousin's, I had a piano, and I suddenly found myself writing a piece and writing it down as well. And it was in a melodramatic D minor, as so many 14-year-old students' pieces are. But within quite a short time, I was writing a wide variety of pieces and realized that one of the chief influences on me as an early writer was French music, Debussy and Ravel in particular. And so I was trying to do things which were a bit like that. I also wrote some quite sort of atonal music at that time. It was just, you might say, descriptive music. There's in particular Bush pieces for piano, which is trying to do a musical description, if you like, of the New Zealand bush. So yeah, I tried all sorts of things, choral music, even an orchestral piece by the time I was 16. And then, of course, pop music came in, and I started writing music for my own band and writing music for my students as a school teacher. So it quickly became quite a sort of wide-ranging brief, if you like, as to what I was doing as a composer. As a small child, we had no piano. We had no classical music element in my background at all. My parents were quite sort of middle of the road or even slightly country, you might say. I remember 2 albums we had at home was Burr Lives and the Korean Orphans Choir sing Christmas carols, and Tennessee Ernie Ford singing gospel music. So because my father, who ended up a minister, was a church member, I ended up with quite a lot of church-influenced music, if you like, of that sort, kind of popular church music. But no piano until I was 8. I was obviously so interested in music and so musical that my mother very kindly decided to rent a piano. Because in those days it was quite common to rent a piano and then, I think, buy it, having paid some installments through the renting, if you like. And so I then got lessons for the first time and just galloped away. I ended up doing grade 8 by the time I was about 12, I think. And in fact, was offered a scholarship to come to London to study because I did licentiate at the Royal Schools of Music. But I was always more interested in being a composer-pianist than being a pianist per se. So I think I was already drifting towards using the piano as a medium, if you like, for writing, certainly by the time I was 14. And eventually I became totally that, a pianist who is a composer or a composer who's a pianist. I won a competition in New Zealand. The most well-known concerto competition in New Zealand was held in Christchurch, and it was with symphony orchestra. If you won it with the prize winners, and I won it when I was 19 years old, playing the Prokofiev First Concerto. So I got to that kind of stage where I was playing heavyweight classical repertoire. I was playing. I remember doing the Samuel Barber Sonata, the Bloch Piano Sonata. So I was doing quite tricky repertoire, you might say, and enjoying it. But I still didn't really feel like I wanted to make a career as a concert pianist. I think I would have almost needed to have started younger than I did. My musical influences rove quite widely. I was a self-taught musician in a sense, in terms of what I listened to. Nobody really showed me or told me what I should listen to. I wasn't from a background which had any classical music, but I was given a tape recorder by my father when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and started recording things off New Zealand's concert program. And gradually composers emerged that I really liked. I was already trying to play some of them, but I realized I had a great affinity for Prokofiev, Shostakovich, Rachmaninoff, Debussy, Ravel, Poulenc, who else? Fauré, Brahms, Beethoven. In other words, a huge list of contemporary composers, when I say contemporary composers, 20th century composers, 19th century composers. I was also a great fan of Bach and C.P. Bach. So it really all sprung from those things. But then when I was a teenager, I started listening to popular music for the first time and started gradually realizing there were certain artists who I really liked. One of the chief ones I particularly liked was Ray Charles, for instance. And I also liked the Jazz Crusaders. There's certain bands or certain jazz players who I really was drawn to instinctively. Herbie Hancock is another influence, and Chick Corea is certainly an influence. And I've just stirred all these things around in my own way. But one of the chief influences, I think, on my writing is that I played in a soul band, or you might call it an R&B band, if you like. But we did a lot of music which is loosely termed soul. And so those influences are stronger, if you like, than rock, and certainly stronger than jazz. Although it's called microjazz, in fact, it could have been called micro soul or micro R&B, and would still have been kind of accurate, because I'm not primarily a jazzer, although I like jazz and I sort of dabble with it. But I am primarily someone who likes a groove, and I think those kinds of styles are really what microjazz kind of sprung from, along with those myriad of classical influences. I'm always discovering new people, and in fact, one of the people I particularly like is Eliane Elias, the Brazilian jazz pianist, Brad Mehldau, the jazz pianist who's American. I continue to enjoy classical repertoire, if you like, and delve into all sorts of highways and byways there as well. But those particular two, I think, are quite an influence, because I like Latin music. And in fact, I've got a new book out called Essential Guide to Latin Styles, which made me realize that I've had that interest in Latin styles from way back, because it actually originally came out in 1994. But I'm also quite interested in the idea of doing things which are impressionist sounding, you know what I mean? In other words, I'm still listening to things and think, oh, I like that. And I don't even question why I like it. I just think I'm drawn to that. And I know it goes into the memory bank, and subconsciously it's starting to influence how I write.